Hey guitar teachers, welcome back. So we're here today to talk about this guy, the Hal Leonard R&B guitar method. So before we get started, I guess first thing, remember to press the thumbs up or the thumbs down depending on how you feel. Subscribe, press the bell, leave a comment, and just the general YouTube things. Do the general YouTube things. And second of all, I'm going to give you my take on this before we even dive into it or anything like that, which is I think that it does what it sets out to do. If you're going to go through this with a student, make sure that your music theory chops are in order. Make sure that you are ready to make a lot of supplementary materials, or I'm going to put a link in the description to my Teachers Pay Teachers account. I'll throw up some for this book. And lastly, I hate that I have to say this, but make sure that you know how to read. All right, so let's dive in. All right, so first thing we got in this book is a section on vamps, which is of course very important to the R&B style. I'm not a huge fan of this big splash of different chord shapes and stuff like that. One of the really important things that I look out for in method books is this idea of concept and context. And they can come in whatever order, really, depending on what you're doing. One may be better than the other. But the idea is you present some sort of musical idea, some sort of concept, and then you give context to practice it in. So on that note, it accomplishes it, but it doesn't, right? Because you have all these chord shapes, and it is going to give you context to practice them in. However, I mean, just going through, this isn't an exercise. This is just like a cheat sheet or something like that. It would very much benefit from exercises that actually make use of these and draw attention to the fact that, hey, we're making use of these. Then we have this, one page on boogie patterns, 2 examples. And then we come over here, talk about the harmonized major scale. Again, some sort of exercise or context for these right away would be great. While I appreciate this huge dissertation, it is not a great way of, transmitting information. So you're kind of starting to see where I was saying you're going to have to create a lot of supplements for this, and you better have some jazz chops, some sort of music theory background, something like that. And we have this little bit up here, double stops in 6. It gives 1 for each one of the chords, which is a little bit silly, right? Because we know with 6, if we're dealing with triads, you have 2 of them per chord. And then the triple stops and then 4-note chord voicings. Again, these are not exercises. These aren't going to teach kids anything. They can play through them and say yay, I did it, but it doesn't really give them a context to practice it in. Coming down here, of course, we have some little exercises and stuff like that. This is not going to be enough to make it sync. You get into some 1/4 vamps, some major triads, minor triads, little exercises here and there. A little bit on knock on wood, and then it introduces 9 chords. Let me give you a little example of the language in this book and why it's a little bit silly. 9th chords are the link from jazz to blues to R&B and soul music. Theoretically, they're composed of the root C, 3rd E, 5th G, flat 7th, B flat, and 9th D notes relative to the C diatonic scale. We get into blues progressions, of course, very important to the R&B style. There's actually a good number of these, so I do applaud them on that. Then we get this little splash on double stops. Again, a little bit silly. Doesn't give you a lot of opportunities to practice it and internalize, these are the double stops that happen in A, and it doesn't give all of them. It'd be really good to just have, a little etude, a little practice line where you work on the double stops for the various chords before immediately throwing them into a song with scale tones and different things like that. And without giving too much of the book away, it kind of continues in this manner, right? It'll present a concept. It'll give you a big splash page of things, that fall into that concept. And then a couple little exercises or sections of songs that you can use to practice these things. So in a way, I like it because it does present a concept. It does present a context. The real shortcomings are the language that it uses to describe all of these, and the fact that when there is a concept presented, there's really no opportunities to practice it as its own sort of thing, little etudes or stuff like that, before you jump right into the songs. Developmental psychology will tell us that we need 5 to 7 exposures to a concept before we really start to grasp it. We fall short of the 5 to 7 in pretty much every instance in this book. One thing that I really do love is it ends with A Rainy Night in Georgia. Cornell Dupree is one of my absolute favorite R&B guitarists. I wish they had given more of the song, but kudos to them for making this the magnum opus of the book. So hopefully after that brief kind of rundown of the book, you can see where I'm coming from. Hopefully you can. I do very, very much appreciate that they follow the concept context kind of rule. You present a concept and then you give context to practice it in. But that being said, that's, other than the language, probably its biggest shortcoming, right? It presents concepts in this very splash page, internalize all of this information immediately manner, and then doesn't really give ample opportunities to practice it before you start using it in various contexts. And again, one can come before the other. You can practice the context before you practice the concept and kind of go back and analyze it at that point. But even then, it falls a bit short of our 5 to 7 exposures of a concept in order to really internalize the information. So again, if you plan on taking a student through this, be prepared to make a lot of supplementary material, or click the link below and download mine. So final thoughts about maybe who this is for. I think it has a place in the library of the jazz guitarist who maybe comes across an R&B chart every now and then and doesn't want to fall back to the default of just playing it like a swing chart. Which, to be fair, I think is one of the shortcomings of a lot of our school programs, at least from what I have seen. We always get like funk charts and bossa charts and stuff like that, but the teachers never really take the time to explain like how you would play that differently. So everything just ends up sounding like your generic swing chart. On that note, if you have a kid who's fresh into jazz band, middle school jazz band in a lot of instances is just blues band. Like they call it jazz band, but it's just blues band. And after that initial period of getting them caught up, making sure they know all their chord voicings and scales and stuff like that, they're going to get pretty bored just playing the same dominant sevens, for like ever. In my opinion, a lot of these R&B guys are just masterful rhythm guitarists, especially but not limited to the 12-bar form. So if you want a resource to give them a lot of licks and ideas and different rhythms and stuff that they can use to, spruce up their blues band playing, this is a good resource for them. Lastly, if you have an older student who's already got some chops and they randomly discover, Cornell Dupree or Bobby Womack or Steve Cropper or any of those, and you want to get them in a book and show them, more of that style, this would be a great addition. So yeah, overall grade, maybe a C+, B-, something like that. I do think there's value in this book. It was just executed in a way that's not the most conducive to education, if that makes sense. All right, that's all I got for you. Until next time, may all your students be perfectly practiced, and I will see you later.